This is where it was at. It's special when a night like Thelonious would come up and we would have the piano there for the play. The piano was tuned and everything was top notch, where the music would come out and be like it was supposed to be. And the man was very artistic and very particular about everything that he liked and playing the music and whatnot, and the people that came there to listen to it.
You talking about Monk?
I'm talking about Monk now.
Tell me when you first met Monk.
I met Monk in the early part of 41. 118th Street between 7th and St. Nicholas Avenue, on your left-hand side, Minton's Playhouse.
His melodies were beautiful. His chords were unusual. His colors, his rhythmic sense, and the spiritual feeling in the music. When you heard his music, it just carried you away.
The most difficult thing about Monk in the studio was a combination of his perfectionism and his really basic, I think, inability to understand what the hell was supposed to be so difficult about his music. The attitude that he understood it, why couldn't you?
A lot of things that we do in common one to another. And we all do some of the usual things, We use some of the usual phrases. Monk wasn't like that, So Monk was like a real free spirit who said, I'm gonna play this way. This is what I want. And he played stuff that nobody else ever played. He was a rebellious spirit, and probably one of the few people who really stuck to their gun and got what he wanted out of what he wanted to do. There's very few people who make it doing what they want to do. Monk went through a period of not making it, but he still was Monk. When he made it, he still was Monk.
He epitomizes what a jazz musician is supposed to be. He has a style which is instantly identifiable, whether it's in composition, whether it's in his playing, or whether it's someone playing along the lines of Thelonious Monk. It's a very personal approach to jazz.
Everyone treated Thelonious special. I knew there was something special about this guy because he didn't quite act like all my uncles or his friends, and everybody felt very happy. He elicited a real good feeling from everybody in the family all the time. He was big on, like, anytime anybody in the family had a birthday, Thelonious was there to play Happy Birthday, which is an extraordinary event. To hear him play Happy Birthday, believe me, was not the traditional voicings. But, for a long time, I didn't really know what it was, per se. I would listen to him play the piano, and I knew that he didn't play like everybody. In fact, Now, in retrospect, as I get older, I would have to say there was certainly a point when I was very young where I was rather distressed that it didn't seem like Dad was doing what everybody else who was a world-famous entertainer was doing. You know, it was like he was into his own thing.
It was a message. He had a way of saying to the piano and giving you a message. You know, every note was clear, precise, at the same time a tremendous sense of swing. And in addition to all of that, he showed me that all the values of our music are modern, like stride piano, for example.
Monk was a stride pianist all of his life, and he would write even a very complicated piece of music, and he would play somewhere along the line stride piano, because that was the way he heard things and the way he organized things.
Harlem stride piano was this incredible period around the 20s and 30s, you know, and 40s also, of the great, great pianists, such as James P. Johnson, Lucky Roberts, Willie the Lion Smith, and many others. And they would play a lot of rent parties, you know, and the piano became like a total orchestra, and they would play for dancing. And James P. Johnson, ironically, he lived in San Juan Hill in the same area as Monk, you know. And James P. was one of our really master pianists. And they all went into stride, and stride was just a wonderful way for pianists to swing. I like stride.
I think it's easier to understand Thelonious if you realize that in many ways he was himself a tremendously traditional artist. He had a great awareness of the past in jazz. Well, you know, the area that he grew up in the West 60s in New York was an area that James P. Johnson was living in at that time, and apparently James P. was a childhood hero of his. I mean, I recall a recording session when I did the first solo album I did with Monk. We were standing in the control room listening to the playback of an improvised blues that he had done, and he turned around and said to me, "Gee, I sound just like James P. Johnson."
And for me, Thelonious was wonderful because he put the traditional and modern and put it together. So there was no separation, you know. And you wrote a beautiful blues called Functional. I'm gonna play this for you and use a little bit of stride.